بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام والسنة. بإذن الله تعالى, before getting into the next chapter, that next chapter which deals with أحكام تختص باللباس والحجاب, the rules and the regulations that are particular to dress and the hijab covering. Before getting into that chapter, Shaykh Fawzan hafidhahullah ta'ala, he gets into a very important issue, and we had mentioned this issue at the conclusion of last week's class, and that is the ruling on al-ijhad, hukm al-ijhad, the ruling on abortion, and the termination of pregnancy. And this is something that it is incumbent that we understand what is the ruling of abortion, especially due to a lot of the modern day conversations that are going on as relates to women's rights and so on and so forth. So as not to get caught up in the whirlwind of the methodologies and ideologies of the kuffar and of the opinions of the kuffar and so on and so forth, it is incumbent that we understand what is our way, what is that which is legislated inside of our religion. What is the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as relates to this affair? What are the guidelines of the deen of al-Islam as relates to this topic? So from that standpoint, it is a must that we understand these rulings very well. Shaykh Fawzan hafidhahullah ta'ala, he mentions, he says, Ayyatuha al-Muslima, he says, O Muslim woman, innaki, verily, you are. And I want all of the sisters to pay attention to listen up to this address, as these are words that are particular unto each and every one of you. These are words that are particular to each and every one of you. Shaykh Fawzan hafidhahullah ta'ala, he says, O Muslim woman, verily you are mu'tamina shar'an ala ma khalaqa Allahu fi rahmatik, or fi rahimik, fi rahimik. He said that, O Muslim woman, verily you are entrusted with that in which Allah has created inside of your wombs. You are entrusted with that which Allah Azza wa Jal has created inside of your wombs. And I want all of the sisters to really pay close attention as relates to this, and to understand this affair, and to understand this responsibility and this obligation in which they have been entrusted over, this affair in which they have been entrusted over. The Shaykh hafidhahullah ta'ala, he goes on to mention, he says that you are entrusted over what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created inside of your wombs, min haml, فَلَا تَكْتَمِيهِ, so therefore do not hide it. Do not hide that which has been created inside of your wombs. Do not hide it, that which Allah Ta'ala has created inside of your wombs. Naam. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَلَا يَحِلُّ لَهُنْ, it is not permissible for them أَن يَكْتُمْنَ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ فِي أَرْحَامِهِنْ, it is not permissible that they should hide that which Allah has created inside of their wombs. إِن كُنَّا يُؤْمِنَّ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, that is, if they truly believe in Allah and the last day. That is, if they truly believe in Allah and the last day, then they are not to hide and to conceal that which is in their wombs. And this is very appropriate that it be mentioned here, because from the motivations of abortion in some cases is, or what is preceded, what precedes the abortion in some cases is the hiding of that which is inside of the womb. And then they go on from there to terminate the pregnancy, wa'iyadu billah, where they have been prohibited from from hiding that which is inside of the wombs. Na'am. The Shaykh, he says, فَلَا تَحْتَالِ عَلَى إِسْقَاطِهِ وَتَخَلُّص مِنْهُ بِأَيِّ وَسِيلَةٍ فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى رخص لك الإفطار في رمضان إذا كان صوم يشق عليك في حال الحمل أو كان الصوم يضر بحملك. He says that Allah Ta'ala, to show us the importance of this affair and of this situation, to show us the importance of the affair and of this situation. ولحظة. طيب. Let us recap. The Shaykh Hafidhullah Ta'ala, showing the importance of the pregnancy and the importance of the baby that is inside of the womb. He reminds us of the fact that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He has allowed for the woman who was pregnant to break her fast in the month of Ramadan. So she is allowed to eat in Ramadan, bil iftar, for Ramadan. إذا كان الصوم يشق عليك, if the fast becomes difficult upon you, في حال الحمل, when you are pregnant. If the fast has become difficult upon the mother at a time when she is pregnant, then she's allowed to break her fast. أو كان الصوم يضر بحملك, or if the fasting is that which will harm her child, harm the child inside of the womb, then she's allowed to what? To break her fast. Naam. So this shows you the importance over the situation of the health of the mother and the health of the child. Naam. That it is that which is to be preserved. And even if an affair such as great as fasting, which is a pillar from the deen of Islam, even an affair like fasting, which is a great act of worship, if it's going to bring harm to that mother, or in particular as relates to this particular case, specifically to that child, that unborn child, then she is allowed to break her fast in the month of Ramadan, so that that child is not harmed, that child in the womb is not harmed. If this is the case as relates to this great affair, then how much more so is it unthinkable, unfathomable, unthinkable to what? To terminate the pregnancy just like that, or just the termination of the pregnancy just like that, without reason and without cause. The Shaykh, he says, إنما شاع في هذا العصر من عمليات الإجهاض عمل محرم. He said, but in that which has become widespread in this particular time frame that we are in, and inside of this era, from all of these procedures, all of these abortion procedures and the like, then this is an action that is haram. This is an action that is prohibited. Muharram. This is an action that is prohibited. وَإِذَا كَانَ الْحَمْلُ, and I want you to pay very close attention to this. Na'am. I want the women to pay very close attention to this so that they understand the meaning. And likewise, if my voice reaches to the brothers, na'am, or those brothers who may be listening now, then I want you to understand this fact very well. The Shaykh, he says, وَإِذَا كَانَ الْحَمْلُ قَدْ نُفِخَتْ فِيهِ الرُّوحِ وَمَاتَ بِسَبَبِ الْإِجْهَاضِ فإن ذلك يعتبر قتلا للنفس التي حرم الله قتلها بغير الحق، ورتب على ذلك أحكام المسؤولية الجنائية من حيث وجوب الدية على تفصيل في مقاديرها. The Shaykh Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he says, and if this pregnancy, if this unborn child has had the soul breathed into it, if the unborn child is at that stage inside of the womb, and stage inside of the pregnancy where the soul has been breathed into it, where it has a soul, na'am, if it were to then after that die due to an abortion, if it were to die due to an abortion, then this will be considered murder. This will be considered murder and the killing of a soul in which Allah has made it haram to kill it. Na'am, the killing of a soul التي حرم الله قتلها, the soul in which Allah has made it haram to kill it without right. So therefore, those rules and regulations as relates to killing and murder will be applicable upon this particular crime. From the standpoint, they will have to pay blood money and monetary compensation for the taking of a life. And the details as relates to this, will be as relates and as particular and specific to their cases. To their cases, for lack of a better term and or translation. The Shaykh, he mentions, he says, من حيث وجوب الكفارة. For example, she would have to give a kafara. They will have to give a kafara. وعند بعض الأئمة, and in some of the imams, they mention, some of the people of knowledge, they mention here, what is the kafara that a woman will have to do for the termination of a pregnancy of a child in which the soul had been breathed into it? Na'am, is that what? الرقبة المؤمنة. They will have to free a believing slave. They will have to free a believing slave. Na'am. فمن لم يجد, and whoever does not find such, فصيام شهرين متتابعين, then they will have to fast 2 consecutive months. They will have to fast 2 consecutive months. وقد, and I want you to pay very close attention to this. نعم, very close attention. وقد سمى بعض العلماء هذا العمل بالموؤودة الصغرى. He said, and some of the ulama, they have named this. They have named the killing of the child inside of the womb as the small burial of infants. Now, in Jahiliyyah, in the time of Jahiliyyah, what they used to do, the people of Jahiliyyah, is that they used to bury the girl babies, the female babies. They will bury them alive, and they will kill them by way of burying them alive. Na'am. The Shaykh, he mentions that some of the people of knowledge, they have named this abortion, they have named abortion of a child, especially once the soul has been breathed into that child, the murder of that child in the womb, they have named this the small burial of the babies, the small burial of the babies. Now, وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, this is a trait that is despicable, بِلَا شَكْ وَبِلَا رَيْبٍ. Anybody who would think that a civilized society will condone the killing and the murder of babies, anyone who thinks such needs to have their head examined, for they are mentally unstable. They are individuals who are insane, filled with idiotic notions. وقال الشيخ محمد بن إبراهيم رحمه الله تعالى في مجموع الفتاوى وَأَمَّا السَّعِي لِإِسْقَاطِ الْحَمَلِ فَلَا يَجُوزُ. I want you to, and I want everyone to really pay close attention to the likes of this, because this is very serious. Now, we're not talking, I want you to listen to what the Shaykh mentions to show you the full extent on how you have to preserve and you have to strive to safeguard your child that is in the womb. When that child is in the womb, you have to strive to safeguard it, and you can't do actions that will be detrimental to it. You're not allowed to do actions that may bring harm to it. And if this is the case as relates to what the Shaykh mentions, then what about going and getting a procedure, an abortion procedure? Listen what the Shaykh says. The Shaykh says, وَأَمَّا السَّعِي لِإِسْقَاطِ الْحَمِلِ فَلَا يَجُوزُ. He says, and that running, vigorous running, with the intention and the purpose to induce a miscarriage is not permissible. Do you understand? To run, to get on your legs, stand up and to run vigorously with the intention to try to induce a miscarriage is not permissible. So if that's not permissible to run to induce a miscarriage, then what about going down to family planning, abortion center, and then getting what? An abortion. Subhanallah, a'udhu billah. Na'am. To run with the intent of causing a miscarriage is not permissible. The Shaykh mentions, he says, وَمَا لَمْ يَتَحَقَّقْ مَوْتُهُ فإن تحقيق فإن تحقق ذلك جائز. He says, but that which does not result in the child's death, meaning that type of exercise, regular, normal exercise, of course, without the intention of causing a miscarriage or inducing a miscarriage, the regular exercise, if a woman would like to do it from jogging or whatever the case may be while she is in a state of pregnancy, that's advisable for her and will have no harm and things like this, that which will not bring about the child's death, then it's okay. It's okay. So it's okay for a woman to still be physically active and to do something from exercise, whether that is walking and so on and so forth, and the like. As long as it doesn't harm the child, it's fine. But if it is such that it would induce a miscarriage or lead to the death of that child, then it is not permissible. It is not permissible. And for further discussion upon that, then a person, they can refer back to the Majmu' al-Fatawa, the Shaykh Muhammad bin Ibrahim rahimahullah ta'ala. وقد قرر المجلس الهيئة كبار العلماء, and the Majlis, the assembly of the major scholars, they have issued a verdict or guidelines as relates to this particular issue of abortion and that which follows. Firstly, so for those who have a pen and a paper, then we advise to write these down. The first guideline as relates to abortion, and this is important for us to know. What are the guidelines as relates to abortion? Okay? Because you will find that the Muslims, our way is a middle way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us a ummah that is in the middle. Naam. We're not far to the right nor far to the left. Okay? So you find that, walillah alhamd, the Muslims are not like the Catholics, who abortion under any circumstance, regardless of the situation, is not an option. That's how the Catholics are. They don't care. Regardless of the situation, no abortion. Regardless of what that would translate into and what would be the repercussions of such, no abortion, ever. And then you have the liberals. Right? And in their mind, what? You can have abortion for anything, regardless, and with the slightest of provocation, it doesn't matter. If she wants to kill it, she can kill it. That's what they think. Wa'iyadu billah. Whereas with Ahlul Sunnah, with the people of Islam, we have guidelines. We're in the middle. So firstly, they mention, لا يجوز إسقاط الحمل في مختلف المراحله إلا لمبرر شرعي وفي حدود ضيقة جدا. is that it is not permissible to terminate a pregnancy regardless on which stage it's in. So regardless on which trimester it's in, now regardless on which stage or which level, it is not permissible to get an abortion except if there are reasons and legislative causes, and we're going to come to see bi'ithnillahi ta'ala what are those legislative causes. But unless there are legislative causes and legislative reasons which come with very strict guidelines, very strict guidelines, but if these very strict guidelines are met, then in that case an abortion can take place. It's okay for an abortion to take place. Now, so it's firstly that we know that there are certain instances where an abortion is permissible. There's certain instances when an abortion is permissible. Now, but it has to meet the criterion of those very specific guidelines, which are very strict. But we'll come to see what they are, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. But yeah. Secondly, إذا كان الحمل, if the pregnant woman في الطور الأول is inside of the first stage, وهي مدة الأربعين, and the first stage here refers to, meaning she's within the first 40 days of her pregnancy. Now she's in the first 40 days of her pregnancy, and this is a very important point to know. وكان في إسقاطه في هذه المدة, and she seeks the termination of the pregnancy inside of this time within the 40 days. خشية المشقة في التربية الأولاد, because she fears a difficulty in the rearing and raising of the children. She fears a difficulty in the rearing and the raising of the children. Okay. أو خوفا من العجز عن تكاليف معيشتهم وتعليمهم أو من أجل مستقبلهم أو اكتفاء بما لدي الزوجين من الأولاد. Okay, these are the reasons now. I want you to check these reasons out. If she's in her first 40 days of pregnancy, right, and she wants to get an abortion, she wants to terminate the pregnancy, and her reasons for the termination of the pregnancy are as follows in her mind. Her reasons are as follows: because she fears a difficulty in the rearing of the children, right? She fears a difficulty in the rearing of the children. Or she fears that she will have an inability to feed the children and to take care of them and to spend upon them, right? She fears that she will have an inability of feeding them and taking care of them and so on and so forth. Or she fears that she will have an inability of being able to properly educate them. This is for both her and her husband. They both have these fears, right? Or they fear the future of these children. They say, the world is so bad. You really want to bring children into a world like this? You see what's going on in the news. It's so bad and everything, whatever. You want to bring children into a world like this? Now, or because her and her husband, they have agreed that we have enough kids. They have agreed we have enough kids. Now, if any one of these reasons are the reason, the Mashaykh, they say, فَغَيْرُ جَائِزْ, is not permissible. If these are your reasons, it is not, with a capital N-O-T, permissible. It is not permissible. Okay? Does that make sense? That's understood? Right? It's not permissible. Thirdly, the Mashaykh, they mention, they say, لا يجوز إسقاط الحمل إذا كان علقة أو مضغة حتى يقرر لجنة أن الاستمرارية أن الاستمراره خطر على سلامة الأم, is that it is not permissible to go forward with a procedure of the termination of the pregnancy. It is not permissible to go forward with the procedure of the termination of the pregnancy or an abortion, whether it is a clot of blood or a morsel of flesh, meaning even very early in the pregnancy, right? Before the soul is even breathed into it. It is not permissible to proceed with an abortion or the termination of that pregnancy unless a panel of doctors who are trusted, unless a panel of doctors who are trusted and trustworthy, they have confirmed that the continuation of this pregnancy will be harmful to the mother. Except that a panel of doctors have confirmed that the continuation of the pregnancy will be harmful to the mother. Naam. وَأَنْ يَخْشَى عَلَيْهَا الْحَلَاكِ, and they fear for her that she will die. They fear for her that she will die, or that her health will be adversely affected, and her quality of life will be adversely affected, which may lead to her destruction. From what? من استمراره جاز إسقاط بعد استنفاد كافة الوسائل لتلافي تلك الأخطار. Only if they fear that she may be destroyed and reach her death with the continuation of this pregnancy, then it is permissible to terminate this pregnancy, but only after they have investigated everything and they have taken all efforts. They have taken all efforts and have exhausted all means of seeking to avoid that which they are seeking to avoid, meaning that they have exhausted and they have taken all means and all efforts to try to ensure the health of the mother. And after trying to ensure her health and taking all preventative factors, it is determined that the only way that you're going to be able to avoid any type of detriment to the mother, any type of harm to the mother, the only way that we can save her life is by the termination of this pregnancy. Then at that point the pregnancy could be terminated. Or the only way that we can avoid all of these harms that we're looking at is by the termination of the pregnancy. Then the pregnancy has to be terminated. Right? It has to be terminated. Fourthly, they mention بعد الطور الثالث وبعد الإكمال الأربع أشهر الحمل لا يحل إسقاطه حتى يقرر جمع من الأطباء متخصصين الموثقين أن البقاء الجنين في البطن الأمه يسبب موتها. يسبب موتها is that if it is after the third stage, and the third stage here is what's intended by it, is that is after the completion of 4 months of pregnancy. Now, then it is not permissible to abort the fetus or to abort the child until a panel of doctors who are specialists, who are trustworthy, and they are specialists in these affairs, until they have concluded that the continuation of the fetus inside of the stomach of the mother will cause her death. This is after what? Because remember, point 3 was speaking about in the first terms, in the early portion of the pregnancy, right? When it was just a clot of blood or just a morsel of flesh. Now they're speaking about, okay, if it is after this time frame, if it's after this, after 4 months, after this time frame, when now even the child it has a soul, and so on and so forth. In that case, if there's a panel of doctors that say and that have concluded that if she were to continue with this pregnancy, it will result in her death. She will definitely die if she continues with this pregnancy. Now, and that is, the Shaykh, he mentions, وَذَلِكَ بَعْدَ إِسْتِنْفَادِ كَافَ الْوَسَائِلِ الْإِنْقَاذ حَيَاتِهِ. And this is after they have exhausted all means. They have exhausted all means. Now, so as to try to save her life. Meaning, they have exhausted all means to save her life while continuing the pregnancy, to save both of their lives. They have exhausted all means to save both of their lives. Now, but once they have concluded and have exhausted all means and have come to the conclusion that there is no way possible that we can save both of their lives, and that the mother, yes, she will definitely die, that one of them definitely has to die. One of them is definitely going to die, either the mother or the child. And they have come to that conclusion very decisively. Then at that point, it is permissible for an abortion to take place. It's permissible for the mother to abort the child at this point. Because in Islam, you see, with the Christians, the Catholics in particular, they say, no, continue the pregnancy, and if the mother dies, she dies. Continue the pregnancy, and the mother, she dies, she dies. Because with them, the child takes precedence. You see? In Islam, this is not the case. The mother takes precedence. Because the mother, she is here. Without this situation, for all intent and purposes, she's healthy. She has a quality of life, and so on and so forth. Now, whereas the child is yet to be here. It may survive, it may not survive. Ala kulli hal, the mother takes precedent. The mother takes precedent. Her life takes precedent. So we have to ensure that she is saved. Right? We have to ensure that she is saved. So if it comes down to this situation where a panel of doctors have determined, even after the soul has been breathed into the child, they have determined that if this pregnancy were to continue, then this woman, she is going to lose her life. She will not survive it. Then at that point, she is allowed to abort this child. وإنما رخص في إقدام على إسقاطه بهذه الشروط دفعا لأعظم الضررين وجلبا لعظمي المصلحتين. And it's important to understand this point is because once a scenario, we're in a scenario like this and has reached this critical point, then it's important to understand that her being allowed to terminate this pregnancy, then once all of these strenuous conditions have been met, then this is from the standpoint of what? Of choosing or this is from the standpoint of repelling the greater of the two harms. Because the greater of the two harms in this case, because let's go back. We have two harms in this situation. Two harms. The first harm is that the child will die. That's the first harm. The second harm is that the mother will die. Now, we can't repel both of these harms. We can only repel one of these harms. So in a situation like that, when you're forced between the repelling of two harms, then of course you want to repel what? The greater harm. You want to repel the greater harm. Okay? I'll give you an example. It's like, and this is maybe not the best example, but it's clear, bithnillahi ta'ala. This is like if a person was in a situation where they could reflect a bullet that was coming to their head. They had a bullet. One was coming to their head. Another bullet was coming to their leg. Right? Meaning that what? You can't dodge both bullets. Either way, you're going to get shot. Right? You can't dodge them both. Both of them is a harm, no doubt. One is going to hit his leg. The other one's going to hit his head. So in that scenario, which bullet will you repel? You repel the bullet that would do the most damage. which obviously would be the bullet that would hit your head. So you would deflect the bullet that hit your head and what? And get shot in the leg. And get shot in the leg. Right? So in this scenario, the greater of the two harms is the loss of the mother. The loss of the mother is like taking a bullet to the head. Whereas the loss of the child, yes, it is a harm, but it's like taking a bullet to the leg. And if you're in a situation where you have to choose, yani, and you can't escape them both, then you escape the one that will be the greater danger. You escape the one that will be the greater harm, right? So this is what is meant by the repelling of the greater of the two harms. And also, you bring about the establishment of the greater benefit. The benefit here will be that somebody's life gets saved. Either the child in the womb life gets saved, or the mother, her life gets saved. These are both benefits if you're able to do that, right? But we're in a case where we can't save them both. So which one would you seek to save? Then of course you will seek to save the mother. Like in the case, if you had to get either your leg cut off or your head cut off, you want to save a limb. Saving a limb is in your best interest. Okay, which limb are you going to opt for? The saving of the head. You'll take walking around with one leg so you can save the head. That makes sense? So this is how you'll bring about the greater of the two benefits, which is what? Which is the saving of the mother. So if the situation reaches this degree of seriousness, then this is what we are to do. Then there could be an abortion at this point. Then there could be an abortion at this point. That makes sense? Right. The Shaykh, he says, well, this is important, it has to be added to this as well. The council of senior scholars, they have mentioned, they said, وَمَجْلِسْ إِذَا يُقَرِّ مَا سَبَقَ. And if this panel of doctors, if they have agreed and acknowledged that which has preceded, أوصي بتقوى الله وتثبت في هذا الأمر, then it is a must that the parents, they must fear Allah and they must confirm this affair. They must confirm this affair. Okay? If this panel of doctors have said this, even if they take this and take it to other trustworthy doctors to see if they have also reached the same conclusion, so on and so forth. Now, and they must strive their best to make sure that these facts are confirmed and that there is no other way. Then they concluded by saying, Wallahu muwaffiq wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam intaha. Naam. Shaykh Fawzan hafidhahullah ta'ala, he mentions, he says, وجاء في الرسالة الدماء الطبيعية للنساء لفضيلة الشيخ Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin rahmatullah alayh. He says, and it comes in the book, The Natural Blood of the Woman, which is a book that I encourage all of the sisters to get. It's a book that I encourage all of the sisters to get their hands on a copy of it, The Natural Blood of Women, and to read through it and to study it bithnillahi ta'ala. It's a very, 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 very good and important book dealing with some very important topics as relates to the sisters. Na'am. Shaykh Uthaymin rahmatullah alayhi, he mentions inside of this book, he says, إنه إذا قصد من إسقاطه إتلافه فهذا إن كان بعد النفخ الروح فيه فهو حرام بلا ريب لأنه قتل النفس بغير الحق وقتل النفس محرمة حرام بالكتاب والسنة والإجماع. He says that if the intention of the termination of the pregnancy is to do away with this fetus and to do away with it after the soul has been breathed into it. So with that, with the abortion, I also want to add into it an abortion or things that will bring about a miscarriage, right? Things that will bring about a miscarriage. I don't want anyone to understand that, oh, it's only meant that if they go down to the abortion clinic and, go through the procedure, then that's the only thing that's meant. No. Even if they do things to induce a miscarriage, like, certain herbs and plants that can be eaten and so on and so forth, and that will induce a miscarriage, or like aforementioned by the Fadilatul Sheikh Muhammad Ibrahim, who had mentioned that even running vigorously, doing some type of strenuous movement and the like, so as to try to induce a miscarriage, like jumping up and down, so on and so forth, trying to induce a miscarriage, then all of this stuff, this is haram. This is haram. So if they do this, if they either get an abortion or try to induce a miscarriage, and their intention in doing that is to get rid of the child and to terminate the pregnancy, if this happens after the soul has been breathed into the child, then this is haram, and there's no doubt as relates to this, that this is the killing, this is the murder of a soul in which you have no right to kill. This is the killing of a soul which you have no right to kill. This is murder. Naam, this is murder. وَقَتْلُ النَّفْسِ, and this is the killing of a soul that is prohibited, is forbidden that it be killed. And that is haram. It's haram in the Qur'an, it's haram in the Sunnah, and with ijma', that it is haram. Naam, it is haram from every which way, shape, and form is haram. وقال Imam Ibn Jawzi في كتاب أحكام النساء, and Imam Ibn Jawzi, he says in the book أحكام النساء, the rules and regulations of the women. Naam, the rules and regulations of the women. And let me just stop here again to reiterate something that was mentioned many classes ago, and that was the ulama, they always have a extreme concern for the education of the women. And this is a refutation upon those kuffar who come with the propaganda that Islam does not encourage nor advocate the education of women. Look how many scholars have been mentioned speaking about women's issues. Look how many scholars have been mentioned that have authored books particularly on women's issue, like the book that we're reading from here, Tanbihat ala Ahkam Takhtassu bil Mu'minat, the Sheikh Fawzan. Naam. And then the book that was mentioned by the Fadilatul Sheikh Sheikh Uthaymeen, Ad-Dima At-Tabi'iyya Lin-Nisa, the natural blood of the women, so on and so forth. And now this book by the great scholar Ibn Jawzi, rahmatullah alayh, Ahkamun Nisa. Naam, the rules and regulations of the women, have a lot of emphasis on educating the women, because educating the women, then this is important. This is extreme importance. This is encouraged. It's encouraged for the women to learn. It's encouraged for the women to be knowledgeable about their deen. And this notion that it is not favorable for women to become knowledgeable and to learn, this is not an Islamic concept, but this is from the propaganda of the enemies of Islam. This is from the evil actions and the bad consequences and repercussions from Ahlul Bid'ah, the likes of the Khawarij, Sufi, Taliban, and so on and so forth, and those who are upon their way from these Khawarij. Naam. And they do these evil things like preventing the women from learning and so on and so forth, and then it brings bad image to the deen of al-Islam. But this shows you again from the evil repercussions of bid'ah and of the people of bid'ah. Naam, bid'ah, yes, and the people of bid'ah, because bid'ah don't walk around by itself. Bid'ah doesn't walk around by itself, but it is perpetrated upon the hands of the people of bid'ah. So yes, we warn against the bid'ah and the people who do it, and the people who carry it, and the people who call to it. Ala kulli hal, this is from the evil of the people of innovation, is that they allow the image of Islam to be tainted, and they allow the enemies of Islam to capitalize on what they have done and use it as a propaganda to push people away from Islam. You understand? So there is no benefit, there is no upside to what the people of innovation do, because there is no upside to bid'ah. كل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Every bid'ah every newly invented matter is a misguidance, and every misguidance is where is in the fire. نعم. طيب. على كل حال, the Shaykh, he goes on and he mentions inside of Ahkam Imam Ibn Jawzi, he mentions in Ahkam al-Nisa, he says لما كان الموضوع النكاح للطلب الولد, he said, since the affair of marriage is to have children. Now, this is one of the objectives of marriage, is to have children, have offspring. وليس من كل الماء يكون الولد. He said, and not every water is going to produce children. Now, not every water is going to produce children. You know, not every time the spouses have intercourse will the woman get pregnant. Okay? Doesn't happen all the time. The Shaykh, he mentions, he says, فَإِذَا تَكَوَّنَ فَقَدْ حَصَلَ الْمَقْصُودِ. He said, but if she were to get pregnant, if it were to happen, she were to get pregnant, then what was intended will be attained, it will come about. نعم. فتعمد إسقاطه مخالفة للمراد الحكمة. He said, but to intend its termination, then this will be contrary to this wisdom. It will be contrary to this wisdom. إلا أنه إن كان ذلك في أول الحمل قبل النفخ الروح فيه إثم كبير لأنه مترق إلى الكمال نعم إلى الكمال وصار إلى التمام. He said, and if the termination of the pregnancy was before the soul was breathed into it, then verily this will be a big sin, and this will be a tremendous crime, because this will be overlooking the benefit of the perpetuation of the development of the child, going until the full completion of that situation. وَإِلَّا أَنَّهُ أَقَلْ إِثْمًا, but it will be less of a crime مِنَ الَّذِي نُفِخَ فِيهَ الرُّوحِ, from the child who has actually had the soul breathed into it. From the child who has had the soul breathed into it. فَإِذَا تَعَمَّدَتْ إِسْقَاطَ مَا فِيهِ الرُّوحِ كَانَ كَقَتْلِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. He said, and if they have intended to terminate the pregnancy after the soul was breathed into it, then this will be the killing of a believer. This will be the killing of the believer. وقال تعالى, and Allah the Most High, and the Most High, He says, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةَ سُئِلَتْ وَإِذَا مَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. And when the maw'udah, remember we mentioned this is the child that was buried, those baby girls that were buried alive, those baby girls that are buried alive, the babies buried alive, they're called maw'udah. Now, those baby girls buried alive is al-maw'udah. Allah Ta'ala says, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. And when the female babies, the female infants who were buried alive, they will be asked, for what crime were you killed? For what crime were you murdered? Naam. Then this will be from that. And as the ulama, they explain aborting the child. Naam. Then this is like the small version of killing a child once it has come out and burying it alive. Fattaqullah. The Shaykh, he says, so fear Allah. Fattaqillah ayyatuha al-muslima. So fear Allah, O Muslim woman. ولا تقدمي على هذه الجريمة لأي غرض من الأغراض. And do not perpetrate this crime, regardless of whatever objective you may be trying to reach, regardless of the objective, regardless of what is sought after. Don't do this, and do not become deceived بالدعوات المضلة, and do not become deceived by these false da'awat that are astray and that lead people astray. نعم مضللة that lead people astray and bring them astray. وَالتَّقَالِيدِ الْبَاطِلَةِ, and do not blindly follow الَّتِي لَا تَسْتَنِدُ إِلَى الْعَقْلِ وَلَا أَوْ دِينٍ, and do not blindly follow, do not commit and perpetrate this false blindly following of those who are not drawn, of those evil women who are not drawn to intellect, they're not drawn to intelligence, they're not linked nor or connected to intelligence or religion. Do not blindly follow these evil and wicked women. Now, what was afore mentioned, then the Shaykh, he concludes this particular chapter and goes on to the next chapter. We would like to add in conclusion what was mentioned about the likes of these situations, is that which relates to ordinary circumstances, ordinary situations, when that pregnancy takes place between a husband and between the wife, or that pregnancy takes place between two willing parties. As the ulama, they explain that even if a woman were to fornicate and then she becomes pregnant, it's not permissible for her to terminate the pregnancy so as to hide the fact that she fornicated. It's not permissible. But she has to go through it with the pregnancy. So in any event, this is talking about the termination of the pregnancy when it's dealing with two parties who are willing, two willing parties. Then the rules will be as you have heard them. Lastly, we'd like to mention the issue that it comes up, and that is the issue of rape. That if a woman, she is raped, and whether that rape was done by a member of her family, وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, or that rape was done by someone else, but she was raped. In the case where the woman is raped, then the ulama, they mention that if it is before the soul has been breathed into the child, then the pregnancy could be terminated, and there's no problem with that. And the pregnancy could be terminated, and that's due to the trauma of what has taken place, and due to the potential trauma of what may come, and so on and so forth, upon the mother, whether upon her deen, her sanity, and so on and so forth. Then the pregnancy, it could be terminated, and there's no problem in that. Whereas, if for whatever reason she decided to keep the baby, and then the soul was breathed into the baby, and now she decides, okay, no, now I changed my mind, then the ulama, they mention, and this is an abridgment of the statements of the mashayikh, that in that case, if once the soul has been breathed into the child, and if she was in a situation that was similar to what was just mentioned, then it's better for her to go full term with the pregnancy, and if she has to go full term with the pregnancy, and once the child is born, she can always relinquish the raising of that child to someone else. She can always relinquish the raising of that child to someone else. But in any event, if it is inside or before the soul has been breathed into the child, then in this case she has more leverage, she has more freedom, as Imam bin Baz, he mentions, in kana fil arba'in al-ula, if it's inside the first 40 days, فَأَمْرُ فِيهِ أَوْسَعْ, then the issue is more, you have more leniency, or you have more freedom inside of that issue as relates to the termination of the pregnancy. So if a woman, she was raped, and may Allah Ta'ala protect our women from the likes of this, Ameen, and a pregnancy came as a result of the rape, then as long as it's inside of the first 40 days, as Sheikh bin Baz mentions, then she has more leverage, or she has more leadway. So it is no problem, the ulama, they mention, it is no problem for the woman who was raped to terminate the pregnancy which resulted from rape. But they are advised to do it early, before the soul has been breathed into the child, because once the soul has been breathed into the child, then it gets a little more complicated. And this is what the mashayikh, they have mentioned as relates to the likes of this issue. And then Sheikh Fawzan, as aforementioned, he gets into the next chapter, and that is the next chapter which is dealing with the rules and the regulations that are particular to clothing and particular to the hijab, and we'll save that for the next class. And until next time, فنكتفي بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.